Jayden Daniels. I think this might be coach's pick.
That was mine.
That's your okay.
No,
that was your
no.
number one. Look, obviously you got to get Terry McLaurin signed, which I feel confident that they will, and he'll be playing. I think as great as Jayden was last year, he has room to improve. He only threw for 210 yards a game. All right. In the playoffs, though, he began throwing the ball more. He threw 28 times a game in the regular season, 38 times a game in the playoffs, and threw for like 274 yards a game in the playoffs. He only had like a game or two over 300 yards passing. I said earlier, he can throw the deep ball better in the NFL than he did last season. So I expect, and they're saying the reports, coach, are that he's in there when it's dark. Like he's the first guy there, and I love it. So he's shown everything that makes me think he's not going to have a sophomore slump. So he's number 3.
This feels CJ narrative
CJ-esque.
I'm not even entertaining that. I'm not doing the endless comparisons to CJ Stroud here. The reality is, and you guys know I've talked about this a lot, is that Jayden Daniels should have been in serious consideration, not just a generic like, oh, MVP. No, like serious consideration for MVP last season. I mean, the only reason why he wasn't is because like was a rookie, I guess, and because the Commanders weren't winning the division. But I mean, like it's just he was clearly, you could absolutely make the argument that he was more deserving of the MVP than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I mean, like there's an absolute real justifiable argument for that. But we have such this narrow lens as to how we view what an MVP is, to the point where it's just like, I only care so much about who wins MVP. I really learned that this past season when we were having all the back and forth conversations about specifically Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and even Joe Burrow. And when I really kind of thought about it, and I also realized like who all has votes for it and stuff, I realized I was like, I'm going to talk about it because it's just, it's part of the NFL discussion and all. But like, I'll still try to always put my own spin on it, especially because it is so media and narrative driven. But Jayden Daniels absolutely should have been in, like I said, serious consideration for MVP last year. And so you also got to think about like, what does the media want? Because Brew now has as the next one as Lamar Jackson, and since he's already won multiple ones, like it's not so clear to me that Lamar Jackson can just casually get the MVP again. Same thing with Mahomes or even Josh Allen. And so that's why like my top candidates are a combination between what I think can fit a convenient media narrative, as well as who I think is obviously special and is going to put up great numbers and will be on a great team. And that's why, like, as of right now, for me, Jayden Daniels and actually Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow, you could also, I understand that they obviously didn't make the playoffs, but Joe Burrow played out of his mind. Joe Burrow last year had one of the best seasons we've seen, like, man, I don't want to say ever, but like it was a top season for a quarterback, like no doubt about it to me. And just by the sheer fact that his defense was just so awful, he then missed the playoffs and couldn't compete for the division. And now Josh Allen has an MVP, Patrick Mahomes has an MVP, Lamar Jackson has an MVP. We know that those 4 quarterbacks, including Joe Burrow, have been the main 4 quarterbacks for the last 5+ years or so. And now those 3 have their MVPs, but not Joe Burrow. So if Joe Burrow is putting up awesome numbers, has them competing for the division or even just the playoffs, I think you're going to get a lot more momentum behind putting Joe Burrow at the MVP, at an MVP votes, right, from the media and those discussions. For Jayden Daniels, as special and as great as I think he is, I don't know if he has enough of that momentum just yet. I think the media, because I also try to find, who does the media want? Like, who do people want to talk about? Who do people want to elevate? When you say so-and-so is great, how much pushback do you get from, other people in terms of just this general conversation that's being had right now? And there's not a lot of pushback of Jayden Daniels. And so that is going to elevate him more so. Like, I feel like Jayden Daniels can have more momentum than, say, a Jordan Love right now, because there's still a lot of pushback on Jordan Love, and it's kind of like not so fast on Jordan Love. But for the most part, people do want Jayden Daniels, and that's why I always push back on people who try to act like Lamar Jackson goes up against a media narrative, and it's like there's a few people in the media, but for the most part, there's a reason why he keeps getting All Pros, MVP. Like they want Lamar to be him, so he does have a lot of momentum behind him. But I think Lamar to win the MVP this coming season, he would have to be putting up also like absolutely amazing numbers, number one seed overall. Like I just think it'll take more for him to get that follow up MVP. But for Jayden, I think it would be a little bit harder for him to have a great year, but like not win the division, like still be in the playoffs. Like I don't know. Like I think maybe if they're beating the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're winning the division, then that goes an incredibly long way for Jayden for sure. But the other thing though that I push back on though about Jayden Daniels and passing and the passing attempts and this and that, like they're ideally they're going to run the ball more and be more successful in the run game. And you're not going to need Jayden Daniels to be throwing over 300 yards game after game after game. I mean, like in a lot of ways, like the ideal scenario for Jayden Daniels is to be on a team where he's throwing less but more efficient rather than these high volume quarterbacking. And I just made a video talking about this. I forget if it's already posted or not. But just this whole idea in terms of comparing high volume throwing and efficiency and throwing and what what those things mean. I think it was actually in context of Lamar Jackson, how great of a passer is Lamar Jackson, which was the discussion before. And so Jayden Daniels, in a lot of ways, like the Commanders are going to be looking to build a balanced team. It's why I don't get hung up too much on bottom line numbers in that regard. So it's just kind of like when you say like Jayden Daniels only threw for 200 so yards a game, and it's just like, but he was insanely efficient in that process. And I don't look at it where it's like, oh, well, you're an MVP if you throw for 250 yards but not 220. Like it's like that doesn't mean anything to me. And again, we saw Lamar Jackson win MVPs throwing for less. Or around the same, within that range, not throwing 4,000, 5,000 yards. But it was highly efficient. Now, granted, obviously, he had a tremendous run game as well, which you would like to see Jayden Daniels still have. But, like, I don't want Jayden Daniels to be the leading rusher. And I never want Jayden Daniels to be the leading rusher in any game, quite frankly. Like, that's just not what I think is actually a sustainable, long-term winning approach, really. It's just I think Jalen Hurts may have been I don't even know if he was the first quarterback to win the Super Bowl and be the leading being the leading rushing quarterback for the playoffs. Like it just doesn't always go hand in hand. It's great. It shows you how great and special you can be as a player, like we see with Lamar, like we see with Jayden, like we see with Josh Allen. But as soon as Mahomes started to get away from some of his mobility, get away from the scrambles, get away from putting his body on the line, he won more, and it became smoother and easier to build around. Whereas the Lamar Jackson, the Josh Allens continue to still continue to push the limits of their physicality and athleticism, and yet it's gotten them no closer to winning a Super Bowl. Just a fact. It's built their resume of being like, you're awesome and you're unbelievable and you're amazing and I can watch you play all day, every day, but it has not ultimately gotten them any closer to winning a Super Bowl. And like that's what it's all about. And that is the one thing that I really, really have learned over the course of making videos for this channel is really just the difference between elevating a quarterback and elevating a team, and what you need from your quarterback in service of your team, and how sometimes it can be opposed to one another in terms of how great a quarterback is compared to how great the team is. And I think Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes over these last few years have just really beautifully highlighted that more than anything. It's just like, you can have a quarterback that puts up better numbers or looks more like an MVP or looks more special and does all these awesome, amazing things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is getting you closer to the ultimate goal. And so look at Joe Burrow this past year. Like I said, like he really did play absolutely out of his mind. I mean, you really go back and look at what he was doing, like, it was pretty incredible. And yet it wasn't enough. It wasn't even close to being enough. So I ideally Jayden can just get, the Commanders can just build great teams around him, and Jayden can just be settled through this process and not have to constantly be going for it on fourth down and constantly be throwing, because you can't get the run game going, or having to make up a huge portion of the run game. Like, those are not ideal situations for the Commanders. It could be great for Jayden Daniels and will build his own individual resume and his own level of greatness and his own perception of greatness, but it's not necessarily in service of Jayden Daniels. The Commanders don't beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game and go on to win the Super Bowl if Jayden Daniels was able to run more or just throw deeper passes. The Commanders needed a better team. That's what it gets boiled down. They just needed a better team and play a better brand of football and have a better defense, right? Like, there's other boxes that need to be checked. If Jayden Daniels could throw deeper and run more or something like that, would he put up better numbers and it would have been more exciting, and would have the game maybe have been closer? Sure, absolutely. And then we could have said, wow, that was an amazing game. You can't ask for anything more out of Jayden, but you still go home. So it's always a fascinating thing to see the quarterback and the team kind of have different not different goals, because it's still all the same goal, but just kind of how you want to get there. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jayden Daniels being a top MVP candidate for Brew? I think it makes a lot of sense, obviously. But right now, I feel like if I had to pick, it would be Jayden and Joe Burrow, and I'd probably put Joe Burrow ahead of Jayden Daniels. Not because I think Joe Burrow is better than Jayden or any of that type of situation, but just because of what I feel as though the conversation that the media wants to have. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.